So, I actually pulled a photo off the internet of the original black and white NBC photo for the radio show called The Shadow. Yeah, okay. So the title of today's talk is called The Shadow Knows. And of course, The Shadow Knows was the answer to a very famous question which was always asked by Orson Welles, who was the narrator of this program. And that was, who knows what evil lies in the hearts of men? Who knows what evil lies in the hearts of men? And the answer was, the shadow knows, right? So, okay, here we go. Sorry. Another famous radio personality whom I've mentioned before is Garrison Keillor, and he says that unless you want something about your life to end up in the Sunday message, best not to visit with the minister from about Wednesday onward. So I visited with my sister Betty Ann, who's in the back row, yesterday, and we had a little chat. And we were talking about this topic. And so I get to add that Betty Ann shared with me our memory of sitting on a stool in our kitchen when we were growing up, listening to The Shadow Knows on the radio. Now, this show ran from the 1930s to about 1954, and she was born after that, and I was too, so I guess they were reruns or something. Apparently, Betty Ann was about 7, and I was a newborn, so there's the cute setup for The Shadow Knows. So now that we've done some levity, let me tell you what Carl Jung had to say about the shadow. Of course, he was sort of the pioneer of this whole concept, or one who certainly brought it into the forefront in the same time frame. He was writing about the shadow in the 30s and 40s. So we have here, see, I'm not going to tell you the quote just yet. But let's see if I can summarize what he did teach. One of the things that he taught is that we've all got stuff that we are stuffing. We've all got parts that we're denying that we have. We've all got aspects to our personality and our impulses that we'd rather not admit to. And so we all have this tendency to pretend they're not there. And he said that pretending and that stuffing, that repressing, only results in that stuff showing up somewhere else. Now we know today, because we're all so hip, that energy has to move and that everything is energy. And so if we stuff something, we deny that it's there, it'll simply find another outlet, right? It's just like water. It's just like that darn gopher in that game. You know, you pound it down here and it pops up over there. So this scary idea about this evil that lurks in the minds of men probably was part of the inspiration for this Shadow detective series. Because in some of Jung's writings, he talks about some really horrific stuff. And he says if we don't get it under control, we're all going to hell in a handbasket, basically. Because this non-acknowledgement of things only gives them the opportunity to show up somewhere else without conscious choice, without clear decision, And then what happens is our primal nature, our undisciplined part, and by the way, all of the false ideas we've ever entertained just get to be part of this sort of default decision. And we act, we react, we're reflexive, we just do stuff. And I have to admit that there are times when I recognize this pattern in myself. It happens at home when somehow an idea is shared with me that is not in alignment with something that I covet very dearly. And, just like a knee-jerk reaction, I don't actually kick, right? But I can get, I get the look on my face that says, don't you dare even ask, because I care about that thing so much that I'm a little bit primal about defending it. And it's probably like my own, just having my own idea. I mean, it's funny. It's funny, but it's not. Okay, so we have The Shadow Knows. We have Carl Jung, who really brought this idea to the forefront. We have psychologists and psychotherapists and hypnotherapists in the room who know lots about this. And some of us are studying to become them, and some of us have spent a lot of time with them, and some of us have just read all the self-help books available on the subject, right? So we know that. We know that stuffing doesn't work. Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of this teaching, had a couple things to say about this, more than a couple, but here's good. Deep within our subjective mentality are the imprinted memories of previous experiences. Hidden away in the inner recesses of thought, generally unknown to us, are the silent causes of our outward conditions. Holmes says that what we need is a new outlook upon life, a broader vision, and a deeper realization. We must exchange the human for the more nearly divine. We must learn to think as we feel God must think about us. Now, in this room, in this place, we believe that if a different term is more comfortable for you, then that's the one to use. Because the whole point is to have a relationship with the divine. You might say Creator, the Absolute, the I Am, the All That Is, the Universe. Whatever works for you to be able to identify with that intelligence and that love and that perfect substance and that energy, that life that is greater than just that point of awareness and beingness that you are. That's the idea. So here we have Carl Jung saying, we've got this shadow. And if you don't bring it out into the light of day, if you don't go ahead and look squarely at what it has to tell you, if you don't consciously choose what to do with it and about it, it will just operate by default. And what will it do? It will probably create a good mess. And maybe this will happen often. Maybe it'll happen cyclically. We have Ernest Holmes telling us something similar. That we have these stored memories, and we have these beliefs, and we have these ideas and impulses within us that are creative. What we do here all the time is we study the correlation between the inner and the outer. What's up here and what's showing up down there. That's not new. We call it new thought. It's also ancient wisdom. So often this philosophy is referred to as ancient wisdom, new thought. So Ernest Holmes is saying what we need to do is acknowledge that we got a lot of stuff we haven't maybe looked at. And that as we review that, we liberate ourselves from that unconscious, reactive response to life that may not have, our conscious input. That's, people call that the foot and mouth disease, where you like open mouth, insert foot. You wish you could rewind the tape. You wish you could have a do-over. There I go again, that kind of thing. So one of the things that we have also had the opportunity to learn, and thankfully a lot of teachers since that time have presented this in a positive light, in really simple language that's easy to access. It's not mysterious at all. But a good analogy is a movie projector. And in psychological terms, it's called projection. These things, whether they're aspects of our personality or our tastes or our tendencies, whatever they are that we disown in ourselves, we project onto other people. We actually do it in two ways. There's the dark, shadowy, mysterious way, which is that we disown things such as our tendency to anger. Perhaps we think there really should be peace in the world, but we secretly stew and steam. And if you could read our minds, if you could see what's going on in there, you'd say, gosh, there's a lot of festering, right? So we might disown that we ever get angry. But we say, those people over there, ooh, gosh, they get mad all the time. That's an example of disowning that piece and not really addressing it. And so we keep seeing it showing up out there. We also disown things like our gifts and talents. So we put those on the famous people whom we admire and follow every breath, every step, every word, every song, every movie, every book, whatever it is. We admire people. That's not such a bad thing. But what if we do it to the point where we don't ever take the time to recognize that there must be something in us that's equal to that, or we wouldn't be able to do it? These are principles of recognizing the world as our mirror. So what we do is if we push something down, be it good or bad for the sake of easy conversation, we put it down here, we say, oh no, not me. But we long for it, and we admire it in others. We can have a really dramatic experience of longing and never having, really awful, feeling torn, and have a really wonderfully dramatic experience of not having that thing. We could repress other thoughts that we have about things that we might be angry or afraid of, and what will happen? They will show up on the outside, on the screen of our lives, in the characters on that screen, in technicolor. And they will show up as people, places, and things to fear or to be angry at. We have an opportunity, however, to recognize what's going on, to know that. And we were speaking a little bit before the celebration about resonance. The fact is that we couldn't fear something unless there was something equal to it within our mentality, our psyche. We couldn't admire someone unless there wasn't some quality equal to that quality within ourselves. So when we can learn to recognize those things, we get to choose to bring out into the light of day all that we have been pushing down. We get to bring out that stuff that we've been afraid of and look it squarely in the face and hold it up into the light of awareness. And let the light of all of the knowledge and understanding and expertise that is available to wash over it. Let the light of truth be on it, whatever that is. And no longer have that thing that we're fearing and trying to escape, but we're keeping it in our back pocket. Why? Because what happens is it ends up showing up around us in the people, the places, the things in our environment. Until what? Until we get it. The same is true for the beauty in us, for the talent in us, for the longing to write a book or sing a song or teach a class or walk the Camino or whatever it is for you. Whatever that is. It's a beautiful thing to understand what resonance is. I have, I do a lot of confessing up here because I know I have permission to tell my own stories. But I remember, and I have said this before, that I really fell for this guy one time. He was an artist, he had a great taste in music, and he cooked really good food, and he did amazing stuff, and he was succeeding at doing what he loved. And I thought what that meant is that I should just build on, to that life and set up my own, bring my stuff and be right there in order to have that. But I had a good teacher in my life who said, what that is that's resonance. Aspects of you that have been asleep, that have been buried in the shadows, that have been disowned, are waking up to the artist in you, the musician in you, the teacher in you, whatever it was. And so I said, thank you, and I went on my merry way. And I started painting, I started playing music, I started doing all these things that I didn't even know were mine to do, because they were buried really far. So the shadow knows, and the shadow lets us know what we've been putting down there. Because energy moves, because it must be expressed, it must have an outlet, it will have an outlet. That means that everything that we're not looking at is still showing up in front of our eyes for us to look at. The key word in that phrase is for. It's for us. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, says that life is not happening to us. It's happening through us. And what we do here is we look at how that is. Because we were talking about this last week, that whatever we understand can no longer be a source of fear for us. When we understand it, it becomes our knowledge. It becomes what we call law in our lives. Now, there's really nothing ominous about the word law either. There are laws that govern things like flight. Isn't that wonderful? There are laws that govern motion. There are laws that govern everything, the interaction of everything in time and space. And when we understand them, we can put them to use for us. Do we have to worry that we'll do bad things? Not if we do our shadow work. Not if we're willing to look at our fears and our doubts, as well as our hopes and our longings. As long as we're willing to do that, the answers are available. The answers are available everywhere. They happen to be available in 1 or 2 or 5 forms right here, but they're available everywhere now. So if you're ready to know what you have been pushing down, saying, oh, not me, I'm not like that. I just want world peace. If everyone would just behave, everything would be excellent. Or, I can't do that. But gosh, those people on The Voice are so amazing. And what are you one of those people who sings in the shower and only in the car when the windows are rolled up and you're alone? What is your longing? See, I believe that something put that longing in you. If spirit, I love this, it's from Thomas Trower, but if spirit is forever seeking greater ways to experience the joy of living by means of its creations, guess what? You're it. You are it. Your job is to find greater ways to experience the joy of living. Why? You know, some people, I've seen this bumper sticker that says, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Well, gee, what would it do? What kind of good would it do to be outraged? Unless you can turn that into a passionate resolve, unless you can turn that into acceptance and compassion, unless you can turn that into something positive that is for life, you will only be adding to whatever it is you're mad about. These are very interesting times. These are very interesting times. And we might be tempted to feel guilty about having food and shelter and hot water and clothing to put on and cars to get into. Another way to look at it is to say, wow, how grateful I am. I have all of those things. And I have all of my faculties. And even if you don't, if you wear glasses, if you use hearing aids like I do, if you have some other assistance in your life, if you're still conscious and aware and able to think and express it all, how fortunate we are. Because what we get to do with this is begin by transforming ourselves. We get to do this by beginning with ourselves. And the way that all of that good shows up in everyone next to us, and out there, and down the street, and down the turnpike, and beyond in every direction, the way that shows up everywhere else is that we let it show up first within ourselves. It changes what we think about. It changes the feelings that automatically follow those thoughts. It changes the creative processes that we set in motion. That's what we do with our thinking and feeling. It changes what shows up in our bodies. It changes what shows up in our affairs. You can practice this. You can practice it by choosing what you're looking for. I was saying in our business seminar last weekend, I don't know if it was probably Friday night, that if you ever want to find out what your hidden beliefs are, start using affirmations. And the reason for that is because if you use an affirmation that is in direct opposition to something you've been holding onto that's holding you back, what will happen is it will pop up. They say, no you don't, no you can't, I can't do that, they won't let me, whatever the case may be. What that is the perfect opportunity to know precisely where to do your work. Another thing that we learn in these rooms is that darkness is not a power or a presence or an entity within itself. We know this now. Now, granted, it's daytime. But if we turned out all the lights and we drew all the shades, it would be, kind of darkish in here. That darkness doesn't have a power. We just let more light in and change it. That's all we have to do with our psyches. That's all we need to do with ourselves. That's all we need to do for the rest of the world. And it has to begin at home. It has to begin within the center of each of us. I want to share something from Jung. There are two quotes here that are really wonderful. So the first one has to do with this common misperception that all we do around here is think about sweetness and light. Jung says about the temptation to go for all that. Filling the conscious mind with ideal conceptions is a characteristic of Western theosophy, but not the confrontation with the shadow and the world of darkness. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Now, we just said that we don't believe that darkness is a power in and of itself. This was written in 1945. So I'd like to think that what's happened is that our concepts about all this have evolved. And we recognize that what we need to make conscious, as I was saying, is what we have not been willing to look at before. And every time we finally become willing to look at something, it's never as big as we made it out to be, right? It's never as costly or difficult as our imagination made it. Here's the other one. If you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all his projections, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. Such a man has saddled himself with new problems and conflicts. He has become a serious problem to himself, and he is now unable to say that what they do this or that they are wrong and that they must be fought against. Such a man knows that whatever is wrong in the world is in himself. And if he only learns to deal with his own shadow, he has done something real for the world. He has done something real for the world. There's this thing about wanting to go out and do stuff and give stuff and change the world, make a difference. Even in giving a gift. It's a spiritual, what's that called? It's not axiom. I can't think of the word right now. But it's one of those things that's a little funny. Because you can't go out there for the purpose of changing the world and succeed. But if you go in here and change yourself, the world will be transformed. It's the same about everything we do and every gift we give. So what I invite you to do right now is actually to close your eyes and just take this truth in with me. Because I want you to take it home with you today. I want you to recognize that everything is really lighter than you may have thought. So as we take this into a closing prayer, I speak my word recognizing that the truth of all life is infinite intelligence. It is boundless, overflowing love. It is perfect, pure spiritual substance, immutable power. And it has made everyone and everything out of itself, in its image and likeness, already perfect. Always knowing everything that everyone and everything needs to know. Always being loved and having more than enough love to have and to use and to share. Harmonizing. Unifying. Always perfect. Abundant. Substantial. Eternally energized. And because this is so, I know that we know We already know everything that we need to know, and we recognize the perfection of all aspects of life, even those things we've been afraid to look at. They too love us so much they show up as the people and the circumstances in our lives so that we can get it. Why? Because we're here to love. We're here to be embodiments and expressions and experiencers of that love. We are here to know joy. We are here to share in the beauty and the magnificence of all that is. And so I release my word, accepting these gifts fully, knowing that they've already been given. And together as we open our eyes, we say yes, and we say, and so it is. Thank you.